Welcome to Conversations in Education. I am your host, Dr. Leslie Torres Rodriguez, Superintendent of Hartford Public Schools. Today, we present Part 3 of our series, Great Schools for All Students, a 4-part series about school district redesign in Hartford, Connecticut. Hartford is redesigning its school district, and our series delves into the most crucial guiding principles behind the district model. The changes that will be made in our district impact every family and student, our teachers, our school staff, our community partners, and our neighborhoods. The guiding principles around which we are redesigning the district include great teaching and learning in every school, expanded family and community partnerships, safe and equitable access to great schools and pathways, and fiscal sustainability. Great schools and pathways means that we focus on the whole student, that we thoughtfully plan for each child a clear, logical pathway for how he or she moves through the district, being able to choose high-quality schools in their own neighborhoods, in transformed schools that are safe, caring environments where students feel that they're welcomed and that they want to be engaged in. It means that we say to each student, we have a plan for you all the way through college and career readiness. This is where all of our priorities, our non-negotiables as a school district and city, come into play. Programmatic changes will also accompany facility changes, and through expanded community partnerships and refocused teacher training and academics, we create open neighborhoods of learning, of which our schools are culturally competent hubs. And that we have a plan to ensure each of our students is in a modern, updated facility. This is much more than a conversation and planning about buildings and facilities. To discuss all of this, I welcome our guests, Yvette Avila, Hartford Public Schools Executive Director of Elementary and Middle Grades Education, Oliver Barton, Executive Director of Secondary Education at Hartford Public Schools, Fred Till, Director of Transportation for Hartford Public Schools, and Sally Vasquez, School and Family Support Service Provider at Sanchez School. Welcome to you all. Thank you for being here. Lots of conversations this morning, right? There's lots happening around us as we think about the restructuring, the redesign, reimagining of our school district, and so I have some questions for each of you. I'm going to start, Yvette, with you. When I think about what you are charged with doing and servicing our students, our principals, our schools, right? Thinking through providing customized, what we call customized differentiated supports for schools and for our students in kindergarten through grade 8, about instructional coaching, making sure that our leaders, right, have the supports that they need so that they can impact instruction. What does that look like for you from pre-K to 8?
So it gives me the opportunity to visit schools on a frequent basis, where I meet with principals regularly. We meet as a whole, but we also meet individually. And so I have the opportunity to meet with the school and learn the school community, visit classrooms and become familiar with the students and parents in the building, and really determining using data what the school needs to move forward and accelerate their process in improving achievement. And so as I meet with them daily, I learn the functionings of their buildings. And so between data teams, leadership team meetings, and how they function as a community, and then I build their capacity, and I do that in an individual basis based on what they need as a leader.
So you're talking about building capacity in order to impact and improve teaching and learning. And that is one of our priorities, making sure that our students have a guarantee and access to rigorous instruction where they can improve every single day in terms of their learning. From a social and emotional, from an academic perspective, what changes do you think we as a district need to make to fulfill that promise so that everyone has access to the high quality teaching and learning?
So I think we have to continue to have a high rigorous curriculum, right? So we've already started. We're on our way in providing that for teachers. We're working diligently to create a coherent and consistent curriculum across the district. And so I think that is one of the things we've already started, but to continue that, to develop the capacity in which teachers are teaching and methodologies that they need to use to differentiate instruction on a daily basis to meet the needs of all of our students, and having a high quality curriculum begins that. I should cut that, but okay. But additionally to having high expectations for all students, and that we are supporting students in a way that they need to be supported. When you did talking about the whole student framework, we have a whole student framework that really addresses the social and emotional needs, and we're talking about what provides the environment that welcomes the student, that really deals with children who may have experienced trauma in their lives, and children who might need something different and not the same thing, but still having a quality education every day that they come to school.
So I can think of all of those elements that you spoke about. Curriculum, what happens, that interaction between what they're teaching, what the teacher is teaching, and how the student is perceiving, receiving that information. Oliver, would you say that your role is similar to Yvette's when I think about secondary education? And then see if you can also explain to us what does that look like differently for students as we think about perhaps pathways. That's one of the things that I talk about in terms of the redesign, making sure that our students have clear pathways through high school and beyond.
Yeah, so two big questions there.
Yes.
First off, the role is really the same role as Yvette's in terms of guiding leadership in the building and assessing the needs and the development of that building as a premier educational institution focused on the needs of our specific students. But the context at the high school level is quite different. So for example, this morning I was at a student-led seminar in one of our high schools where a 10th grader led her peers in a conversation about how schools should be designed. So for 80 minutes, without any intervention from the teacher, the student had structured a conversation and a dialogue among the other students in the room. And what that pointed out to me was, one, that they've really developed the structures and capacity in the students, or the ability in the students to manage their own time and to lead conversations and dialogue with each other. So the other interesting thing there, of course, is that students are this close to graduating. So in their conversation, you can hear their thoughts literally about who they're going to be as adults in 5 years and where they're going. So there's an urgency to have them ready for that at the high school level. So the leadership is a little bit different, I would say, working with high school principals and teachers.
So I'm hearing already a theme evolving, right? We're talking about leadership in the sense that we are supporting and modeling best practice for leaders. We certainly are identifying those elements for our students and creating the conditions for them to have voice and ownership of their learning. And so I'm wondering what that translates to, for example, for our parents, right? When I think about Sally, so we heard several themes already that are starting to emerge around leadership, right? Providing supports for our leaders to build their capacity in order to support the instruction and the delivery of the instruction in the classroom that can then provide conditions for students to assume leadership roles and take ownership of their learning. I'm wondering, Sally, for you in your role, how does the work that you do translate into leadership for our families, and then also help advance the work that Yvette, Oliver are trying to do for their principals and for the teachers that they're supporting in those schools?
Definitely. Part of my role at the school to provide the support and services that our families need, and being able, part of my education, being able to educate and provide those resources and have parents understand the connectivity between this parent and teachers and administrations in the community, and provide us those resources they need, such as in ESLs as a second language, stability they will need, educational sections so parents can get the benefit and understanding how can their leadership and their initiative can be supported for the school implementation.
So your efforts really help perhaps at times create and even improve or sustain a culture and a climate in which everyone is focused on improving on behalf of the students.
Definitely, yes. Part of my role through our parent-teacher organization, or PTO, and our school governance council, having their voice and having their input in their leadership in the school as implementation of the method of the school doing. Yeah.
One thing that I often say is, the belief actually is something that I know myself as experience and as a child and as a student in the system, is that the needs and the strengths of all of our students should be met and addressed not only in school, right, but outside of school. And so when I think about that, and I think of your role and the needs that both of you see in the schools, I feel that schools, right, should have extended day,
Yes.
that there should be additional opportunities, whether in schools or in our communities, before, after school. What do you think, and what do you see as Sanchez? And then what do you think are those best practices to support students?
Definitely. At Sanchez, we are having a partnership with the Hispanic Health Council, so we are being able to provide what is an after-school program and early care through the Family Resource Center. So right now we're being able to offer after-school program for 100 students, and part of those students also is being opening for the families that relocate from Puerto Rico to Connecticut, and it's opportunity. It's a big key. It's a big key because if that time in particular the families can bring the child to after-school program, it gives them those tools that they may not have at home. That time. After school that we have at Sanchez, we have certified teachers when they support their reading, and they also support their math, and they also support their enrichment through the cultural component at the school. In the early component, we also have a Family Resource Center where we can teach the early child development, where the Family Resource Center be able to support families at the early age 0 to 3. So as you see, it is a really key. So families can have that support at the early hours and also during after-school programs, and families can feel connected and that extra support to the school. It is a really important key. The open and open conversations that will cover the needs of the school, having them involved part of the decision making. What is the planning? What is time to work on budget for the following school year? How can they be part of that? Having them involved through the school governance council. So their input, and it will be everything matched between the after-school component, the early care, and the school implementation.
Sometimes we hear that there's an issue of access, right? We know that, for example, if the parents and the students are there during the day, that there's no way for parents to have access to either pick up their child after school or bring them to school early, which is, that makes me think of you and your role, Fred, as someone that oversees transportation in our district. Part of ensuring safe access to our schools is, and part of the redesigning of our schools is making sure that we have a vision for transportation to be a resource for our families. So I'm wondering, how do you ensure that, one, we transport our students safely, and what do we need to be thinking about?
Well, to answer that question, that's been the primary objective of the transportation of our students from day one. Safety is a primary thing. So we're not going to enhance that. We're just going to continue that practice because it's the practice that we have encouraged our contractors to get involved with, maintain. We oversee it very closely. So that really isn't something that's going to impact us. What will impact us, though, is we have been able to absorb the influx of students that have come from Puerto Rico. And our system is developed so that we were able to incorporate them into our current system without incurring a substantial impact to our costs. But at the same time, what we do know is that the children have to get to school. And right now we transport almost 3/4 of the students that attend schools in Hartford get a ride, one way or another. We have a walking population that we are also concerned about as well. I don't discount them at all because when the weather is inclement, they've got to cross streets. We want our carriers and the public to be aware of the fact that there are little kids out there.
Absolutely.
And we don't want to have incidents like that. Overall, we use a two-pronged approach. We are proactive and reactive. Because of the changing climate of the student population, we have to react to that. But proactively, if we have a core program that we can just install certain things in there, then we can do much better. And as time moves forward with what's been presented so far, it's not going to happen overnight. Nothing does. Nothing good anyway happens overnight.
Agreed.
We're going to find out that there'll be benefits. There'll be financial benefits, but without compromising the students to get to school.
Absolutely.
There's no financial benefit any other way. I'm sorry, it just
Yeah.
doesn't work that way.
Yeah, I agree. And, you know, as part of the recommendations, you certainly heard last night that I spoke of an opportunity that we would have, right? We would release some buildings, we would align and create these pathways, which is what many of our families told us. We want to make sure that as we think about a neighborhood school option, that there are clear pathways. But we also want to make sure that we have the resources that our students need. And I know that that is an opportunity that we may have should the board adopt this plan, which is to free up resources so that we can then reinvest in those priorities. And so whether they be, you know, added after school programming or additional supports for student leadership and voice, or for our principals or our teachers to improve their practice. I'm wondering in terms of your thinking around one of our priorities is systemic accountability. And that's a fancy way of saying that we are going to hold ourselves accountable to doing what we said we were going to do. We're saying that we're going to deliver high quality teaching and learning. We say that we are going to make sure that our students have access to pathways, that our families, right, are fully invested and are partners in this process. And so there's a way that we have to carry out our work, that we get our students safe from point A to point B every single day. And so I believe that we have to continuously check if we are delivering on that. And if we are not, for whatever the reason, we have to identify why so that we can improve on that practice. And so I'm wondering how, for example, in terms of curriculum or principal support, how does data, right, guide what you do? Because I believe we need to have some data to monitor what we do.
So it does it in several ways. And each school has a data team. And they have a data team that they look at the actual data, student data. They look at culture data, behavior data. They look at even parent data, how often parents come to school. There's climate data. So the data really tells a story. And it tells a story of how well they're doing. It tells a story of what's still needed. And it gives them a direction in which to go. On top of that, principals get together to look at data across district and talk about, in their school improvement plan, they create a school improvement plan based on that data, and they talk with each other to help, and they collaborate with one another to really help support the data, telling a positive story, a story that's really of continuous improvement. And so the conversations about data are continuous, and even in this process we use data. We went to the community and we asked for data. We went to surveys, we asked for data. We asked leaders about what they thought models of excellence was, right? And so we as a district continuously use data, I think, in every aspect. I can't think of one area that we don't use data to drive our practice.
Oliver, do you think that there are ways in which we can improve? Right, I always think about how is it that we can get better today than we were yesterday. So I'm curious to see not only your perspective around the secondary grades, but it just, you know, as an organization in general.
So I would say that we've referred a little bit to the student outcome data, which is so critical. That is a little different at the secondary level in that we kind of paint a picture of the ideal graduate, not only in terms of their academic understanding, but their social emotional skills. And so we need to monitor and understand our students' progress towards those outcomes, including beyond high school. So not only are they applying to college, accepted, enrolling, and then persisting in college and being successful there. So there's lots of data to look at in that regard, but there's important data around adult practice. So across all our buildings, we need to be cognizant of when new practices, new forms of instruction and techniques are introduced, how well are they implemented and first modeled by some sort of pioneering teachers, but then also implemented across all classrooms. So that's another part of the data that I think we can work harder on within our buildings through principal teams and peer observation walks. So being really clear on what the practices should be and how well we're rolling them out across all classrooms and all parts of the organization.
So I heard outcome data, I heard practice data. I'm wondering from an operational perspective, right, how it is that we make sure that the buses and the lunches, right, all of that stuff.
Our data that we track that tells what our measure of success is the number of complaints that we receive from the parents. Okay, because as you folks that are dealing with the curriculum portion, we're dealing with the parent, and each one of these students out here as a parent. And they're going to come in and they're going to express their concerns as to incidents on the buses. It's not restricted to parents. The schools are involved, DCF is involved, a number of programs are involved. And that's what we use as a measuring stick. Right now, we transport, it seems a little outrageous, but we transport 110,000 students every week. And I look at the number of complaints versus that 110,000 kids. And when I find out that we have 15, 20 complaints, it's of concern to me. But that tells me that the carrier is doing a well above average job of getting our students there. We certainly know we're not going to satisfy everybody. That's a given. But as long as we stay at that higher percentage figure, and it doesn't escalate, and even amongst the crisis that we had last year, with all of the new regulations that were put forth, which really triggered a lot, we found out even under triggering that much, it didn't have that great of an impact on what we were doing. But we monitored it even more closely. So that's what we look at, okay? And that's what we're going to continue to strive to be. But we're, again, proactive. We don't do this once a month.
Right.
We do this weekly.
Yeah. And so that's a culture change, right, that we want to make sure that what's happening in your department, those are the types of practices that we want to see throughout the entire district, right? Data exists all over it, whether it is quantifiable in terms of the number of instances or student outcomes to what parents are saying, right? That qualitative data as to what has been their experience when they walk into a building and they engage with the front office staff, when they call. And so I'm curious to see it from your lens. And, we're speaking about, you're talking about customer service, right? And so I'm wondering how that translates and how you see it.
And one of the parts as a families facilitator, it is important to have also families data and have their input. So one of the things that we do at Sanchez, we have our family and community engagement plan, where we review in a monthly basis with our parents' input. So one of the ideas that we came out, parents, myself, and admin, is the consistency. Having parents coming into our school on a weekly basis, like we do morning coffee every Friday, twice a month, and also we do our PTO, parent-teacher organization, meet twice a month also. And the consistency, reviewing what they work during the week, what we need to see in the following week, what modifications do we have to do, or greeting in the morning. One of the that we do at Sanchez that is a really key for families is the welcoming, the greeting in the morning. We have admin, we have an open policy for families as they come in. You see there's a school principal in the door, opening doors. And when kids walk into the cafeteria, you see our dean also over there. You see myself, I'm part of that team in the morning, not only the security office for the safety of the child, but we answer any questions as they come into the school. Our office opens right away, so they have that. So if they want to meet with that admin and they look into questions, any concerns, it's been taken right away. So it's not families have to wait. No, because you will have those answers right away. I think it's key when we have to be success in the family. Part is when you build positions as a full-time to dedicate to the families, and that's basically what I do. I'm available since the morning, in the afternoon. I'm that person that welcomes in the afternoon, also during dismissal time. and we meet in that consistency basis and or climate from the families, like you say, each shares answers what is the response from the families, because you show them. It's not about for half a child to be success. We also have those families that needs to be success. Those resources is key. So in Sanchez, we do have a family resource center, but we also have a parent center when families can come. They can have coffee. It's not that you have to make an appointment. You're more than welcome to come anytime, and that's why Sally's here. Also, we have computers, resources that they can have access in a daily consistency. So that data that is really key, because it's important. We have parents-to-parents contact. Okay, bring parents, have their parents' concerns. We build drop-in concerns or drop-in suggestion mailbox that we have at Sanchez, so we can have their input. We review it in a weekly basis, and our SGC, that is important. We have our parents, staff, community members, and we discuss any change or suggestions that we have. So we do review our community engagement plan. If anything has to be modified, what it needs to work, expectation, that greeting, that welcoming in the morning. And knowing that we have those bilingual staff in the front, then it's not the same thing they say buenos dias, then the good morning, so they can see, hey, we're here to help you. That communication is a key. For example, at our school, we provide a community meetings once a month. We celebrate Student of the Month. We call in those parents and say, hey, congratulate you. Your child was selected as Student of the Month. You did a great job. We're going to be celebrating. Come and join us. So they see that. And they have opportunity, their input, their voice. Every concern, every voice. And trust me and believe me, I will be that guy they will need and those resources they may have. So we do have those data. We do have those tracking from families, because it's important. Because for us to have a success child, we need to have stability with our families, and we have that, and we're lucky to have that at Sanchez, because, like I say, after school component, full service clinic, the families can come. We have a dentist. We have if any of the child needs like a vision, especially we have that. We have a PC, so if a child gets sick to the school, they can get their prescriptions and they don't have to go like for an emergency. So they see that consistency. One of the things also that we do at Sanchez, we conduct home visits. So if you don't come, we go to you, and we also get your input, because your voice is important, because parent engagement is not only face. We also can put your input through that. All that data, all that information, we review it. We review it weekly with parents, and we discuss it in the table, and then from that, we make plans for the future.
And that's the approach that we wanted to make sure that we maintained our commitment throughout this process, at least getting us until last night, the presentation. And it's the approach that we're going to hope to continue as we shift to the next phase of the work, which is to get people to give input and additional thinking. And then, if there's a vote that happens, we pivot to the design phase, which also is going to require all of us, at all levels of the organization, to hold ourselves accountable to say, this is now an opportunity for us to create together and then execute together. And so I'm wondering from any of you what your thoughts as to how can we make the process that we just saw in terms of the engagement better? I'm putting you all on the spot.
Actually, we just completed about a 7-month project, research and development, around what we currently have. Student base has changed a little bit, which helps, as we have to react to that, which is going to get, and I just sent the email out this morning. They asked for a minor extension. My target date was January 1st or January 2nd. It's now moved forward to January 8th with no more delays. But it had to do with better utilization of the vehicles.
Right.
And placing the vehicles that we need, not based on a generic, meaning this vehicle does that work. No, it's based on we need that vehicle to do this job and that vehicle to do this job. So what it's done for us, it's going to increase our seating capacity to put more students on vehicles. It's going to reduce, in some cases, not all, the number of vehicles that are necessary. We are also looking at the support teams that are on the vehicles in the form of monitors. To those that do need monitors via their IEP and those that don't, and put them in separate populations. So we've done a lot of work in that direction. And that's what I'd like to see just follow through. Will it be flawless to start? Nothing is. But we know what to expect. And it will change slightly, but overall, I think it's a good approach as just one phase. As your program goes forward, as the years develop themselves, someone is going to realize that across districts, we have buses driving by each other every day that don't have kids on them. Buses that come into the city at 7:30 in the morning and drop kids off and then they can go home. Why aren't they being utilized to do that? So these are long-range plans, but they're effective plans.
Yeah, and so I see that at a very high level that certainly has impact right throughout the region, as I think more globally. And I'm wondering, right, what is it that we have to do here in Hartford first? I speak about the fact that you know, we have our neighborhood schools. Yes, we live in another context, which is also the choice and the magnet school context, but we have to focus initially, immediately, right, on getting our house in order and making sure that, you know, you talked about consistency, that there is consistency across all of our schools. Not to say that everyone is going to operate, right, in the same way, because every school has their own identity, their own culture, their own climate, but there are certain structures, certain practices that we as a district have to identify so that we can then use the data and be able to compare and say, okay, so if we know that there are great practices here, right, how is it that we can leverage that and learn from that? And so as I think about the next phase of the work and the engagement that has to happen, know that, right, we need all voices, all of your voices, and those that you, of course, connect with, whether it's at the school level, at the leadership level, clearly with our students and with our providers, right, the people that we contract out and we have as partners, and then of course with our parents. So lots of work to be done moving ahead. We know that it is a challenging time for all of us. However, while we want to acknowledge that, we also have to kind of push ourselves and really acknowledge that where we have gotten thus far is not good enough. Right? It is not good enough for our children, and so we know that our children are capable, and we have to improve ourselves in order to serve them.
Well, we don't want to waste resources, and if we can do that, you know, those resources that we can, or expenses that we can reduce, that those resources can be applied to something else more important.
Yeah.
Right.
All we got to do is pay attention.
Yeah. And in relation to the inclusion of more voices in that conversation, I appreciate the number of community conversations that are scheduled on the district-wide calendar in the month of January. But as an additional practice, I think there are some schools, all schools are impacted, right, in terms of how their enrollment might shift, new responsibilities they have with other students coming in. And we're finding at the school level that not only do parents and teachers and staff have questions, they also have thoughts and ideas and concerns as things move forward. So I think we need to tap that system of less formal meetings at every school, either through FRAs and parent centers and meetings that the principal and teachers may hold, to get questions generated and thoughts and concerns elevated so that they kind of come up and get reviewed at a district level and then filtered back down to inform the transitions that are ahead of us.
Yeah, we certainly don't want to go into the next phase of the work, assuming that we have all of the answers, which is why it's so important that we all continue to stay connected with those, all of the groups that we serve. So I want to thank you for the conversation, for your thinking, and the work moving forward collectively on behalf of our students. I urge you to participate in the restructuring of our school district by visiting our website, hartfordschools.org, so that you can learn more about the events that you can attend and ways that you can share your voice. I thank you for watching, and stay tuned for the next and last part of our series.